There are no easy wins for the Pittsburgh Penguins this year, but they were able to beat the Vancouver Canucks 5-4 on Wednesday night. And on today's episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast, Pat and I are going to recap that game, plus go into what we're thankful for when it comes to this hockey team.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am one of your hosts, Hunter Hodes. You can follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes, joined by my co-host, Patrick Damp. You can follow him on all social media platforms at Synonym for Wet, and you can follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. Of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen/watch of the day. We are free and available on all platforms. And finally, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you will get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And also to everyone listening or watching in the United States, happy Thanksgiving. Eat all the good food today. Spend time with your families. And of course, watch some good football. Hopefully there are some good football games today, because when you look at these matchups, kind of lopsided at least, well, with one, if not two of them. But getting to this hockey game between the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Vancouver Canucks, Pat, we finally can recap a win, considering how rare we feel like it's been this year. The Penguins, they go up 5-1. They come close to blowing it. There was definitely a couple of times where I'm like, I feel like they're going to blow it, but they end up winning this game at the end by a score of 5-4, and they snap the Canucks' 8-game road winning streak. This Vancouver team has been dynamite on the road this season, and the Penguins took it to them for a good chunk of this game, starting with the first period. I think there is a legit argument to be had that was their finest period of the season. Yeah, you gave up a goal after scoring early thanks to Blake Lizotte. Really nice, right place, right time goal for Lizotte. And I thought Lizotte played a mostly pretty good game. He almost had another goal a bit later on that trickled just wide of Shilov's on a little bit of a mini breakaway. But then right after that, the Penguins go back to work. You get that great pass from Russ to Raquel. Was it a little bit lucky? Yes, it went off Carson Soucy's stick, but Raquel, really nice job to elevate that past Shilov's. And then on the third goal, I loved that play from Evgeny Malkin, man. The way that he was able to skate that puck into the zone, basically a one-man wrecking crew with that zone entry, skate to the corner, use that patience of his that has been so there throughout his career, fire it to the net, and then Kevin Hayes, right place, right time to clean up the garbage. Really nice goal from him. And then on the fourth goal, beautiful pass from Karlsson to Crosby, and then Crosby's able to cook Quinn Hughes there. And I thought Quinn Hughes had a very good game, but Crosby whooped Hughes on that play. Brian Rust gets the goal. The Penguins go up 4-1 in the first period. And they just played a tremendous first period. Shilov's was not very good in that period. He wasn't really that good in this game. But I really do think that was arguably their finest period of the season. I really want to start there for this episode. Pat, what else did you see in that period from this team?
Not just in the first period, but overall in this game, something I was very encouraged by was the fact that what have we been talking about all season long? Anytime the going gets tough with this team, they wilt. Tonight, in the first period, the second period, and even the third period, this team stood up. Now, is this an aberration? It very well might be. We're not going to declare the Penguins all the way back after a win like this, but I was very happy with how resilient this team was tonight, because we talked about it in our preview of this game. This is a very good Vancouver Canucks team. Yeah, they've had some struggles here and there with injuries and JT Miller being away from the team, but at the end of the day, it is still a very good Vancouver Canucks team, and it would have been extremely easy for the Penguins to give up a goal, give up sustained pressure, and go, here we go again. This is gonna happen again. But they didn't. They stood up, they punched back, they continued to play the way that was bringing them success throughout this game, and it paid off. And one of the biggest things I noticed tonight with a couple of the goals was something that you and I have been begging for this team to do. Go to the net. So many of these goals tonight were the fact that the Penguins were parked right in front of Shilov's and they were able to either clean up the trash or get some sort of a mismatch, whether it was a backdoor play, a rebound, or just being right there in his kitchen. And what do you know? They get a couple goals from doing it.
Right. I agree. And especially the Kevin Hayes goal. I mean, he's parked right in front of the net. Evgeny Malkin shoots it there, and Kevin Hayes is like, hey, thank you for this rebound, Arthur Shilovs. I'm just going to shoot it right past you. And there, boom, there you go. You also had the Blake Lizotte goal. Right place, right time, but he's right at the side of the net to put that past Shilovs. That was also really nice. And, Brian Rust gets another goal in the second period. That's definitely one that I think Shilovs wants back. And also, that breakout pass from Karlsson was exquisite, as I said on Twitter. And Karlsson had a 3-assist game as well. That was one of Erik Karlsson's best games of the season. I felt like he was great in all three zones. He wasn't out to lunch defensively. He was making the right reads with the puck. He was, again, had some brilliant passes in this game, 2 of which led directly to goals. That's the type of performance I really want to see moving forward from Karlsson. I want to see that consistency just because, again, this season, he's been so up and down. He'll have a game like this, but then he'll follow it up with kind of 2 to 3 to 4 duds. I don't want to see that going forward. I want to see him follow this up with 2 to 3 to 4 more really good games. I felt like he was great. And again, also really nice bounce back from Brian Rust. You can tell he really gives a damn about this team. You see it on a nightly basis. It's awesome to watch. And I know there's been, a couple trade rumors that pop up about him at times. I personally do not think he's going anywhere for quite a bit.
Oh, I'm right there with you. He very much, you don't want to say he's part of the core just because you understand what core means, right? It's Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Chris Letang. They are the foundation on which the house is built, so to speak. But Brian Rust, man, he's a support beam. He is somebody that keeps the house standing. And along with the trade rumors, I've said it before about him. The biggest thing is you look at the way he plays and the contract he has. Just for no other reason, that makes him, I think, a Penguin for a long time, because he plays, as you were saying, a very hard, very passionate game. And at 32 years old, with the amount of miles he has on his body, it sucks to say because he has become a fan favorite. He's been a staple of this team for about a decade now. When the wheels come off, the wheels are going to come off real bad because just the type of game he plays. But tonight was a classic Brian Rust game. Yeah, he scored 2 goals and that's all well and good, but he was involved in all 3 zones. He was extremely effective in the defensive zone, played a very smart game in the neutral zone in transition, and then on top of it scores 2 goals, one of which, yeah, I agree with what you said that Shilov's probably wants it back, but we can't not give Brian Rust his flowers. That was an absolute laser. He ticketed that thing for the top of the net. And alongside that, he had multiple opportunities to get a 3rd goal. He was everywhere last night, and it was just such a good game from Brian Rust. And I know that our pal Josh Yo, he says this all the time, and it is extremely correct. Yeah, Chris Letang has been for years the proverbial straw that stirs the drink for the Penguins. But on the forward side, when Brian Rust is going, man, this team is going.
Agreed. And he's also turned into, I think, one of the biggest leaders outside of the core guys, 87, 71, 58. When he speaks, I think everyone in that locker room listens, considering how long he has been there. But I think that'll do it for this first segment. Coming up in the second segment, we're going to discuss a couple more things about this game, including how the Penguins defended in the third period, Tristan Jarry's performance, Philip Tomasino's debut, and so much more. But before we get to that, we got to tell you all about our first sponsor of the day, and that is FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel. That is America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you will get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook betting partner of the NFL. And we're not done. We still got to tell you all about our second sponsor, and that is Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't even have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. You have Game Time Picks. Creation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. They also have all-in pricing, and if you toggle that feature, it shows the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. You also can get a full view from your seat in the app before you buy, and they have the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time is going to credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Down the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, we're back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Hunter Hodes, joined by my co-host, Patrick Damp. So, Pat, let's start this segment with Tristan Jarry. All in all, I felt this was a mostly okay performance from him. The first goal, not really going to fault him too much for it. The second goal is the one that I think we disagree with a little bit. I personally want to save there. I think he mostly sees it all the way. Is there a little bit of a screen there? Yes, I've watched it quite a few times, but I still want a save from him there. I think he has the ability to make that save. I think a good chunk of goalies have that ability to make that save in the NHL, at least in my opinion. You know, you have the third goal. That's mostly just a bad Crosby turnover. And then, again, not going to dog on Brian Rust too much because he had a great game. He was a bit lazy defensively there. I think he could have played that a little bit better. But again, I'm also just nitpicking Rust a little bit. Even though he had a very good game, just felt like he could have played that a little bit better. And on the fourth goal, that's just a mad scramble in front. Really no chance for Jarry there. But I personally think the second goal is really the one that he wants back.
I agree to an extent. I would say this is mostly a 50-50 proposition for me when I look at that goal, because a guy you and I were begging the Penguins to try and go get in the offseason in Dakota Joshua, he had a really good screen on Tristan Jarry. And we know what a rapid fire game hockey is, because a split second can change everything. And I watched that goal back, and I think Dakota Joshua took just enough of Tristan Jarry's eyes away to keep him from reacting quickly enough to make the save. Now, I do think there could have been a little bit more of a so-called effort from Tristan Jarry, whether it's a hope play, just getting, a blocker or a glove out there and trying to get a piece of it. I can totally hear that argument, but similar to what I said about Brian Rust's second goal tonight, where he just lasers one past Shelov's. Yeah, Shelov's probably wants that back, but you got to give Rust his flowers for a great shot. Similarly, I think when Ratu's goal goes in, or not Ratu's goal goes in, but that goal goes in with Dakota Joshua on the screen, you have to give Joshua the credit for being a good net front presence. And I would like a little bit more of an effort from the defense to clear him out. So while I do think Jarry could have been a little bit better in reacting to it, he did have to look around. There was a good screen by Joshua, and sometimes that just happens in the NHL.
That's fair. I still think, again, looking back at the tape a few times, I feel like short side, I feel like he still could have gotten a piece of that and made the save. But moving on a little bit to the way the Penguins defended in this game, I got nervous starting the third period just because the Quinn Hughes goal came right away. And I was like, okay, here we go again. We could be getting closer to, almost 10 multi-goal blown leads this season, because we're already basically there at that point. We would have gotten a little bit closer with this one. But then after that, dare I say this, and I hope this is not a hot take to everyone listening or watching, dare I say the Penguins played a mostly simple and disciplined third period at 5-on-5. From that point on, all the way until the 6-on-5 goal with less than 2 minutes left. I thought the Penguins played a pretty boring third period. They were keeping the Canucks mostly to the outside. I mean, the Canucks only had 0.55 expected goals for at 5-on-5 in that period. And watching the game with my eyes, it looked like it. The Penguins were playing a disciplined game defensively. They weren't really giving the Canucks too much in their own zone. Obviously, it got a lot scarier in the final couple of minutes because Pettersson scores, they make it 5-4, and it's like, okay, here we go again. They're just going to pin them deep in their own zone once again. But to my surprise, and probably to your surprise as well when you were watching it, the Penguins played the rest of that 6-on-5 pretty well. There was a moment or two where the Canucks had the puck in the offensive zone, but it was only for a few seconds because the Penguins really did a good job getting clears, playing in the neutral zone, playing to the red line, and just not allowing the Canucks to really set up their offensive attack again for another 6-on-5 goal. They played the rest of that 6-on-5 very well. So I know the bar is literally on the floor this year for how this team has defended, especially in the third period. Yes, I know they had a 5-1 lead. Yes, I know they only won 5-4. There's no easy wins. But I really do think, for the most part, in the third period, they played a simple and disciplined game. That's what I want to say.
I thought they did too. And I was saying it to you before we hit record. When you deconstruct this game as a whole and you see a 5-4 score, if you just look at the box score, you think, oh, this was a really tight game. This was back and forth, and it was a coin flip of a game, but it really wasn't. This was a game where, for the majority of the game, the Penguins were in control. They were the better team most of the night. And I know that in the first period, especially before there were any goals on the board, people saw the shot total and thought, oh my God, the Penguins are doing it again. They're getting dominated. They're no-showing. But I made the joke that the first period for Vancouver was the classic Carolina Corsies. Yeah, they got a ton of shots at the net, but they were all from the outside, except for maybe one or two of them. The Penguins did a good job of closing the middle and closing those lanes so that the Vancouver Canucks didn't get a lot of good looks. And then when you look at the game as a whole, the Penguins were in control for most of it. And we've gone over the goals because we already talked about Tristan Jarry, and they were mostly fortuitous bounces for Vancouver. And add that along with the Penguins tonight were very resilient. They punched back every time Vancouver would get something to go in their favor. So yeah, it ends 5-4, but realistically, the goal to pull Vancouver within one, like you said, mad scramble in front in a 6-on-5 scenario. And if you can't get sustained pressure with the extra attacker, your second best play is just to turn it into complete chaos. And that's what happened. And they got the bounce they needed. It wasn't as if the Penguins were hemmed in their end for 30, 45, 60 seconds, and eventually Vancouver broke through. They continually broke up any sort of pressure, any sort of possession that Vancouver had. And eventually it turned into a mad scramble. And sometimes that happens. So overall, the effort by the Penguins was very solid, both defensively and offensively. I thought there were a ton of shifts tonight where the Penguins spent 30, 45, 60 seconds in Vancouver's end. And kind of similarly what I said was about the Canucks in the first period. Yeah, they didn't get a ton of looks, but they weren't allowing the Canucks to push back.
Right. The Canucks only had 3 high danger chances at 5-on-5 for that entire game. One of them came in the first period. You said it. It was basically the Carolina Corsies. They had a lot of attempts, so they were keeping a lot of it to the outside. And heck, if you look at all situations for this game for the Canucks, only 4 high danger chances. Penguins played, again, mostly a good amount, pretty fair defensively, save for some pretty nasty plays. Again, the Hughes play, not very good. The Pettersson play, that's kind of a mad scramble. The second goal you probably want to save there. Even the first one, I think, you get the shot block and then the puck goes in the net right after. Okay, whatever. The third goal was, again, really the one that was piss poor defensively. But again,
yeah, but at the same time, I was texting you about this during the game. Quinn Hughes is a cheat code.
He's awesome.
He's insanely good.
Yes.
And for us as Penguins fans, having watched Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Chris Letang, and others over the last 20 years, eventually those guys who are cheat codes break through.
Right. I agree. And just a couple more things to say before we move on to our final segment. I really like the play that Drew O'Connor had at the end of the second period. He saved a goal. It went right off his stick. It was a great pass from Connor Garland to Brandstrom. And had O'Connor not deflected that puck out of play off his stick, Canucks are right back in it at the very end of the period as well. Really wanted to shout out Drew O'Connor for that. And I feel bad because he's also been so snake bitten. He had a couple glorious chances in this game, wasn't able to convert, but really wanted to shout out his defensive play in this one. And also, Penguins power play has been cooking a little bit as of late. That's 4 straight games with a power play goal. Really nice to see. And finally, another really cool stat here. Crosby has hit another 80-point year. This is his 13th calendar year with 80-plus regular season points. He has passed Mark Messier and Alex Ovechkin for the 3rd most in NHL history. There's only 2 players with more, Pat. Wayne Gretzky with 16, Marcel Dion with 15. Certainly good company.
Yeah, very good company to be in. And just so everybody understands, Hunter is talking about calendar year, so we're just talking 2024. He doesn't suddenly have 80 points in this season. That would be absolutely absurd. One last thing I want to add before we get to the end of the segment here. Tomasino, solid little debut. I thought he was involved quite a lot. He had a couple looks at the net. He got a little bit of power play 2 time, did not look out of place. But I'm afraid this kid might have a death wish because on 2 separate occasions, he got absolutely flattened at the blue line. And brother, that's day 1 stuff. Blue line, keep your head up, especially if you have the puck, because everybody's going to be gunning for you. But overall, thought it was a solid debut from him. I'm excited to see what he's going to bring to the table over the next few games, and really hope that this is going to be one of those bets that the Penguins make on a young player that can figure it out and stick here in Pittsburgh.
The funniest part about that hit was that it was the hit of the game for Sportsnet Pittsburgh. That's how big it was. So glad he's okay. And I agree. I felt like it was a solid debut, hit a couple of chances. I'm hoping that continues in their next game on Black Friday in Boston against the Bruins. But that'll do it for this second segment. Coming up to end the show, we're going to have some fun for this. We're going to discuss what we're thankful for when it comes to this hockey team. But before we get to that, we got to tell you all about our last sponsor, and that is Built. If you're a renter, I would start taking advantage of Built if I were you. Here's the thing. We earn points on groceries, travel, and practically everything else we buy, but we should also be earning points on rent and one of our biggest monthly expenses. Built changed the game by letting renters earn high-value points on rent and around their neighborhood. There is no cost to join Built, and as a member, you will earn valuable points on rent and on your everyday spending. Built points can be transferred to your favorite hotels and airlines, and even the ones you haven't heard of. There are over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels and properties around the world you can redeem your Built points towards. Points can also be redeemed towards a future rent payment and unique experiences that only Built members can access. So if you're not earning points on rent, my question is, why not? Start earning points on rent right now by going to joinbuilt.com/lockedonnhl. That's joinbuilt.com/lockedonnhl. Make sure to use the URL so they know we sent you. Again, one more time, joinbuilt.com/lockedonnhl to start earning points on your rent payments today. All right, we're back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Hunter Hodes, joined by my co-host, Patrick Dam. So, Pat, happy Thanksgiving, my friend. I hope you spend today, again, eating good food, spending time with your family, and watching these football games and everything else that all the families around the United States do for Thanksgiving. I want to start with you. What are you thankful for when it comes to this hockey team?
The biggest thing for me, and I was thinking about this when we came up with the idea for this segment, is I know that this season in the last couple have been extremely frustrating. They have been disappointing. They have driven us to the brink of insanity with the way that they have been operating. But I kind of took inspiration from our pal Rob Rossi at The Athletic, who dropped his Penguins Daily on Wednesday, and it was basically a crowdsourced kind of thing of asking, the same question: what are you thankful for about the Pittsburgh Penguins? And for me, it's the fact that for 20 years, this team has not only been relevant and competitive, but it's the fact that they have been a standard bearer in the National Hockey League. Because I know we've joked about this. I especially joke about it in my personal life that, yeah, the dark ages for the Penguins in this modern era was 2.5, maybe 3 years. But this team, post Mario Lemieux's dominance and right at the end of Jaromir Jagr, yeah, you cared about them. They were one of the teams in Pittsburgh, but they weren't a contender. They weren't a team that was going to win a Stanley Cup. Yeah, they were going to make the playoffs, but it was going to be one and done, maybe the second round. That was pretty much their ceiling. And in my life, a lot of people would kind of give me that sly side eye of like, oh, you're still a Penguins fan, huh? Okay, that's cool. You're dedicated to this team. I'm thankful for the fact that in the Sidney Crosby era, it reignited a love for the Pittsburgh Penguins and a love for the sport of hockey, because I'm on this podcast. I could talk to a wall about hockey, and I could talk to a wall about hockey for 3 hours. And the fact that the same people who kind of gave me that same sly side eye of like, oh, you're a Penguins fan. Okay, I guess that's cool. Once Sid came along and the hope returned, people were not shy about wanting to talk hockey with me. And rather than be bitter about it and, say, oh, you weren't there for the dark ages, I was like, you know what? More people want to talk hockey. I love this sport. I want it to be more popular. Let's talk hockey and enjoy it all together. So I am extremely thankful for that when it comes to the Pittsburgh Penguins.
I love everything you said there. For me, I'm just so thankful that we've gotten to watch these core players do their thing for so long. I mean, I know we're at the end here when it comes to their careers. It's coming soon when all three of them are not going to be here anymore and not playing. I mean, there's a time coming where I would say all three of 87, 71, and 58, all those numbers will be in the rafters. People can make their arguments for 58 all they want. In my opinion, he should have his number up there once he officially calls it okay with everything he has done. But I have cherished watching them for all these years, and I'm going to continue doing it until all three of them retire. It's an absolute treat to watch them on a nightly basis, even during a season like this where they've struggled so badly. We come on the show, we rant about how bad they are, how, the coaching has been piss poor. Some of Kyle Dubas's moves have not been good, but, those milestones that we've seen so far this season, like those are worth it. I know, again, the season has been brutal, but seeing those milestones, that makes me super happy, at least this season. And it caps off for me just an overall great era of Penguins hockey. And I'm also thankful that this city has really turned into a hockey town these last several, and I mean several years. I know a lot of people think Pittsburgh, football town, got the Pittsburgh Steelers forever, but this is also a hockey town too. You think about that sellout streak at PPG Paints Arena, at first, obviously, Consol Energy Center, then rebranded to PPG Paints Arena. This city loves the Pittsburgh Penguins, and it's going to stay that way for an eternity. And I'm super thankful for that as well. So those are really just two of the things I really wanted to discuss to end the show, because, I mean, I could talk about those two things honestly forever, man.
You and me both. And just I know this is going to come off as cliche. I know it might come off as a little bit of pandering, but I'm thankful for the audience, the community that we've built, because you guys are passionate as hell, man. I read the comments on YouTube every episode. You guys know I respond to them as well from my personal account. On social media, you guys are always willing to engage with us. And the thing I love most about it is that we've built, and you have built, because again, this is only my second season on this show. You've been at this a lot longer than I have. But the thing is, the community that this show has built is just willing to talk hockey. It's not people lobbing insults. It's not people attacking one another. Yeah, we get a little annoyed. We get a little bit passionate about it because we love this team and we'll go back and forth. But at the end of the day, the community that this show has built is so fun. I'll say this, it's extremely intelligent as well, because I have connected with so many of our listeners to talk hockey, and I consider myself someone who knows a lot about hockey. I played it for nearly 20 years. I've been around it my entire life, and there have been conversations I've had with people who listen to our show, and I've gone, you know what? I never thought of that, and that's an extremely good point, and I appreciate that. So the audience that we have, the community that we have, man, it's an absolute blast, and it could not make this any more fun.
It's the best. I always try my best to like every comment in the YouTube section, heart every comment. I try to respond when I can. We really have built a great community for this show. I feel like everyone who listens to / watches this show knows a good amount of hockey. These are all, in my opinion, very big fans of the team. They'll stay fans forever. And again, I agree. I am super grateful for everyone that is tuned in. I love getting even DMs from people on plenty of social media platforms just asking for my ideas about, a silly season trade. What do you think about this for Kyle Dubas? What do you think about this for Mike Sullivan? Who would you put on this line, etc. I love the ideas that come into our YouTube comments or our DMs, and I hope that everyone keeps them coming, because I really love this community that we've built. I feel like it's, mostly positive. It can be obviously negative when it needs to be, because this team is playing pretty poorly right now, and we definitely call them out when needed, and we've called them out a lot this year. But in general, I think this community is the best out there. I really do. So from the bottom of my heart too, thank you all so much for the last year. And I hope you all continue to listen to us rant and rave about this team forever, because we want to keep doing this show forever at this rate. But I think that'll do it for today's episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. Again, thank you all so much for taking the time to listen to / watch this episode. Pat and I will be back with another episode for you all on Friday to preview the game in Boston against the Bruins and go over some lineup notes as well. So for Patrick Damp, I am Hunter Hodes. Thank you all so much for tuning in. For everyone in the United States, happy Thanksgiving, and we will talk with you all on Friday.